Hey there, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Logistics Life. And today we've got some serial entrepreneurs with us that I think you're going to really like talking to. We're going to talk a little bit about sales, a little bit about logistics, and a little bit about how in the hell they keep it all together. Hey, everybody, welcome back. As I said, we got some serial entrepreneurs with us. When I was originally starting this conversation with these gentlemen, it was one of these things where what do you do? Well, we do this and we do that. And we got a little bit of this too. And we do a little bit of that too. And I was just sitting there going, my Lord, talk about the quote unquote serial entrepreneur. But I'd like to bring them forth now. We're doing a little bit of a different style here where it's going to kind of be the one by one. But gents, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dan.
There we go. The whole system's going to go, oh my God, here's so many different people. That's great. So I wanted to start with this. And here's the question I have. For you guys running multiple businesses, when you started with this, did you start out with the intention of running multiple businesses? Is it something that kind of just fell into your lap? But more importantly, in the second part of this question, how do you keep it all together? Because I see a lot of people have their, you call it day gig, if you will, right? The career they're in. And then I guess the best way to put it is, if you look at the creator economy, you have all these people doing content creation on the side. And there's a point in time in business where, my Lord, how do I allocate time to this? How do I allocate time to that? How do I do this? And how do I get it all done with 100% efficiency? And I think if anything we talk about today, this, I think, will be the biggest piece of the puzzle coming from you three, who at this point, if I recall correctly from our previous conversations, have 4 or 5 businesses you're running.
Yep. So I'll start with I'll give you the background of it. So it was a kind of thing like how we get into this. So I was actually working in a Western Union before, and before COVID, I was working in a Western Union as a customer service. And then my cousin Ali, remember, he was here in the last broadcast. So he was the one who he asked me, like, there is a thing that's going on into logistics. I want you to, do your research and get into it. So he gave me the idea, and I kind of, when I listened to him, I kind of got interested into it. Like, it's something interesting. And I'm kind of a person, I like to, do new things, to learn every day. Still I am. So I got to know about this, and then I started learning. I did like for 3 or 4 months, I did a job somewhere to know like how the process is and everything, the operations thing. So after that, we came up with this, like we registered our company. I had like one carrier that I was dispatching. I was the only like sole person who was handling him. So I started dispatching him. He was working with me for like couple of weeks. And then after that, I never thought that I'm going to be the sales. I can do sales, because I worked in an industry that was customer services, customer success, and this was my background. So when I was like the only person, and there was no one who was doing sales for me, and I was only handling the operation. So then I realized, like, now I don't have like any way, like I cannot go back because I left my job, right? Now I have to do it. So I started doing it for like 1 week, 2 weeks, no response, 3 weeks. Then I started looking for like different platforms like Facebook, Reddit, and LinkedIn. And that's how I, came up with the 1 client, 2 client, boom. Then, continuously we started growing. So when I was like around in like my 3rd month, Denny, he was the guy who joined me. So we both were like, doing work from home remotely. We were sitting together. I was teaching him and, doing sales. He started, popping up. He started doing the operation thing, and I get into the sales. And after like, I believe like 6 or 7 months, we were in half quarter. Then we have like Jeff. I had him on board, and he handled the wholesale process then. So then me and Danny, we were handling the operation. He was doing the onboarding part. I was helping him as well. So that's how we, the COVID till now, it's been like 4 years now. We have like 13 people we are working now, and we have like 6 people in the sales. We have 5 people who are handling, dispatch, the operation thing, and there is HR and accountant, and that's how it was going on. And then now, as we were doing good, like, how we are still doing it, because the market and everything, the situation right now in the states, it's it happens, but it wasn't this bad that until like this year. If you see, like, the situation is way too bad. Why? I was just going through different article yesterday, and I figured it out. Like, the FMCSA or the laws, they are trying to have, they are like, the people who are not good into the business, they are just closing them down, making them register as a new carriers, and bringing them back on in the business. So how we can we still making it, because every day we I try, as my team, I want ask them to do it as well. We try to learn new things, that if we are doing dispatch, is there anything else that we can do? Okay, so then we came up with the, like, we can partner up with the carrier company. We can ask them, we can pitch them that if they have a carrier company, there are people out there who just have a DOT and they're looking for people they can lease on to. So we come up with this venture as well. We had like, we have 2 partners right now we are working with. There was one, like, ANT. We worked with him like 2 years. We were getting people under his authority. We had a fleet size of, in 2023 we had a fleet size of 17 trucks with that one carrier. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
carry on.
Yeah. So every day we try to do like different things. Now we have, like, separated a different part. Like, as you know, that we are facing a little problem with ANT, the carrier that we were working with. We had a little problem with his insurance. We were not able to do much, that much business that we were doing it into 2023. So now we are partnering up with new people like Wheelie Transportation. We had them on board, like, they are all set up with us. Now we are, on the other hand, now this time, as we said, like, we did the dispatch part, like the normal dispatch. Then we come up with this venture, like, we have partner up with the carriers, and we started the leasing on venture. Now we are trying to have like shippers on board, as we are going to, reaching out to them. I have a guy who is making the whole proposal, doing his research, everything. And now we are trying to do, like, once after like a few, once the market will be a little stable and we are back on track. This time we did the dispatch, we did the liaison, we are having a carriers, we know the onboarding process, we know the compliance, how to handle it. We did the audit last year for ANT trucking, the whole audit, because FMCSA, as you know, they need the audit at the, like, quarterly or annual. So we did that as well. Their authority was on condition, we removed that, so we handled that as well. So now this time we are, once we'll come back, we are trying to have like something more on the table, as we will be having contract with the shippers on the brokers. So this is
Got it.
this is the approach that we follow. Like, every time, a baby step, try to do something different, and whenever you come back, you come up with something good. And
So I've got a question for you then. So I'm sure you guys are fully aware, over the last little while, there's been a huge push in double brokering, in like pretty much ghost
Whoa.
companies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been incredible, the increase. So are you finding some of your customers, present and prospects, are you finding you're answering more questions about that? Like, how are you going to eliminate double brokering? What's your security policies? Like, share a little bit about that with us, because I think that's one thing in the next, call it 3 to 6 months, that's going to be a huge focus for shippers as they continue to get burned by these fake carriers and by people that are double brokering.
Yep, we do come across these scenarios as well. In the past, we had some carriers who were working with us, and unfortunately, with these incidents, they had to they had to leave us. It was somehow our mistake, I would say. Yes, for the dispatches, because they need to make sure that whichever broker they are try to work with, they have to do research about it. But sometimes the dispatcher, they get a little desperate, whenever their driver is stuck somewhere, they try to, get them something and then
Yeah.
get them food, right?
Yeah.
That is the time they mess up everything. But
Yeah.
if they
I
have the
can't
time,
tell you guys how many times I've been on the phone and I've been like, oh, it's like the only person in the area. And you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then you hang up the phone and you look at your whole team and you're like, I know something's going to go wrong. And
absolutely.
you still
Yeah.
go through with it. And then you don't sleep. And in the morning, it's like, yep, I knew that was going to happen. And yeah, so I understand totally where you guys are coming from, because you don't want your customers' trucks sitting. You don't
Yep.
want them to lose money. You don't want them to sit around. So you're trying to find them freight, and you're doing whatever you can. And sometimes, let's call it spade a spade, right? In our industry, it moves really fast. And sometimes those things slip through. But, one thing I honor about you guys is you said it just a second ago. It's my fault, because it is your company, and everything that happens is your fault. And I think, as much as sometimes we make bad decisions as business people, as humans, we make bad decisions. And then I think it's not necessarily the bad decision, because I think if anyone's going to hold a bad decision against you, it means they're trying to say they haven't made a bad decision. But I think it's what we do with that decision and how we correct it, or how we, we take it on our shoulders and just say, yeah, my
Yes.
bad. I did it. It was me.
Yep, absolutely. And now I think like the best part to make sure that you are, you're not the victim of a double brokerage. I suggest them, even though they, as a dispatcher, whenever we have like weekly hurdle or meeting, they suggest the newbies, who are coming to get trained under them, they suggest them to have the factoring company credentials. Always check the MC there. If they are factored with them, then go ahead and you can book with them.
Yeah. Even pull up their MC on like Safer Stat. One thing I used to do all the time is I found a lot of companies that were double broker, and they'll have 6 or 7 different MCs, right? Just that they've manufactured or they've gotten from other carriers. They've changed their name on it, blah, blah, blah. And so what I'll do is I'll say, okay, what's the MC number? They'll give me the MC number, and I'll pull it up on Safer Stat as I'm speaking to them. And I'll ask them a very few strategic questions that doesn't sound like I'm coming out and going, okay, how many trucks do you have? What's your address? What's this? So I'll be like, okay, so I've got you in the system. Can you just confirm your address for me so I know where to send the details?
Mhm.
And that will give me a really good, because then obviously I then sit back and rely on my intuition to see if it's like fluid, if it's smooth, right? Because if somebody says, what's your address? Even of your business, it's pretty smooth coming out of your mouth if you've been in business for probably longer than a month, because when you're a new business, that's a question that gets asked a lot, right? So I found that was very helpful. With Safer Stat, it gives you the amount of trucks they have registered, insurance violations, all that kind of stuff. So it could be something like, oh, I see. Have you changed your truck count from the last one that I see? What's your present truck count? Just so I understand when I'm filling out my profile. And these types of questions can sometimes catch them. They are getting smarter to it, because now they'll have like a spec sheet pulled up in front of them. But I like what you guys are doing. So continue. Sorry.
So that's how now they are making sure that they don't get victim of the double brokerage. But sometime as a desperate, if they are like trying to be get them something, these incidents do happen. And recently, I believe like couple of months ago, this incident happened. I cannot recall it. I think Denny, he can tell us more about it. I'm sure, because he was handling the dispatch team. So I'm not handling it anymore. That I'm not focused there as much. As I told you, like I'm into like freight brokerage now. I'm sorry, freight forwarder. So
Okay.
my focus is all about there. We'll talk about it later. Let's have Denny on it, and Denny, we can have some insight on this.
Sure. Danny, share your insights,
Ye-
brother.
Yeah. So what I was thinking that then I think so we cannot stop this thing, because like there are rotten eggs in every industry.
Mhm.
How many you try to control, you cannot. Somehow the rotten eggs are there. So yeah, the double brokerage incident has happened with us like few months ago, and there's another scheme. These double brokers or the fraud peoples are doing that. They are hacking broker's load board directly.
Yes.
And that's how I came to know about this. There was a load on a load board. It was like after every few seconds, that same load is getting canceled and then popping up again, getting canceled and popping up again. Then I was like, there is something fishy. I just put the MC on safer of the broker, and I call on that company number. And then broker told me that don't book that load. That's not us. Our load board got hacked. So now the fraud is getting like in this shape as well. So this thing we cannot like. We just need to be more aware, but we cannot stop this thing. As far as I think so.
Oh, I agree 1,000,000%, Danny. You know, it's like anything, right? Criminal organizations are usually 2 steps ahead. They have to be 2 steps ahead in order for these. I mean, I remember 20 years ago, there was a huge double brokering incident. In literally 30 days, they racked up over $6 million in payments, collected close to 4.5 to 5 million of those payments. And in 60 days, they disappeared and left millions on the street. And I'm talking major corporations that use these people. And it was very simple. And back then, so 20 years ago, the hack was, I got an order. I'll get like, so for example, to a truck, right? So these guys were playing both sides of the coin. They would call up a shipper and say, I've got a really massive contract in this area. I'm charging $1,500 and say the going rate was 2,000, 2,500. So it's a big enough decrease in price for the shipper to go, I can't not look at this, right? That's one. The second one is they'd post it on a load board and they'd say, we'll give you $2,000 for it if the going rate's 1,500. So then the trucks were like, I can't afford not to do this load. No intention on paying the trucks because every single truck was offered 30% more than they actually billed the customer, 30, 40, 50, 60. And so they put this together in a very short period of time. I actually was, last week, I was commenting on somebody's LinkedIn post about it. And it was, we almost got caught up in it because a broker offered us a load and it was paying like $500, $600 more. And I remember my operations manager going, man, like this guy really wants this load covered. He's like, he goes, yeah, I'll take it. So he called in a driver and the guy, he says, well, we're not set up. Can you send your paperwork? And so the guy sends his paperwork in and it just so happened his MC, he was using our MC number and just changed the company name. So because my ops manager had been there for so long, as soon as he looked at it, he goes, wait, that's our MC number. So then the president looks at the paperwork. He's like, all of this paperwork is ours. And all they did was put their name on it. So immediately we looked at it and we went, oh my Lord. So then we found out about it through that. Ended up calling the police, going through the processes. I'm not saying that we were responsible for catching them. They actually caught the company. And it was interesting because it was in like this kind of strip mall scenario, but it's businesses. And there was 3 businesses beside each other. All of them had the same owner. They were all doing the same thing and they used each other as references. So each company had the other 2 companies on their references sheet. So it was like all 3 companies were in this mix and they estimated close to like $16 million was taken out of the market. And it was like this. And now tech is where people are getting involved, right? The hacking, the seizing systems and charging people tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to just, okay, I'll free your system if you pay me in Bitcoin and all that. So, I mean, I think as we rely more on technology, we also are going to need to rely more on security. And the challenge I think really becomes is as you start working globally, and you guys can probably attest to this because I know you're over in India and you're working with the US, you're working with Canada, you're working with Europe, you're working all globally. Every single nation, every single state has like different policies they abide by and different rules and regulations. And I found this out when we were building our software is I just thought software, right? And it's like, no, if you're selling to this country, you have to have it programmed like this. If you're selling to this country, it's got to be like this. And there was all these different rules and regulations that I had no clue existed, none. But it was this eye-opening experience to see. And then my CTO is like, okay, so from a vulnerability perspective, we need to pay attention to this, and this. So this is where we need to start. So we literally locked the entire thing down as best we could before we started development. But so many people jump into business and like, you know, even like truck drivers, I'm going to get a thing. I'm going to go on ITS. I'm going to get the load board. I'm going to use a password, my trucking name 123. And before they know it, they're hacked. And now it's like their reputation's ruined. They did nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, you have a point, like, you know, whenever as the technology is going, you know, beyond our imagination, there are like we have to like as a different, as you said, like we are sitting here. By the way, I'm sorry, you said like India. We guys are here in Pakistan.
Yeah,
not in India. Yeah.
Oh,
so
different. Sorry about that. Apologize.
Yeah, it's fine.
No problem.
As you know, like you have a valid point. Like whenever everyone we as a nation, like you know, if it doesn't matter if it's states, it's Pakistan, it's India. Everywhere they have different rules and regulations, and that we have to follow whenever we are building something. As we are talking about the technology, right? So there are more things we need to have our concern on, like building more things that we can secure that thing as well. So you have a valid point on that. For next, like I wanted to ask you something about the sales. Like I saw I went through the website, I went through your profile. So can you tell us, like, we have Jeff, he's our onboarding guy. I introduced you already. So can you share us with a little bit of your experience about like sales? What's your approach, like how you think that things should be, so we can get to know more about the sales from your experience, and it would be really appreciated.
Sure. Yeah, of course, Jeff. Of course, Zane. Sorry, you just said Jeff. So sorry, Jeff. Didn't mean to call you Zane. So here's my perspective on it is, in today's day and age, you got to be a consultant. And if you focus on goal completion, if you focus on their image, their credibility, and their brand, I truly believe those 4 cornerstones are really help you build a foundation that lasts. And what I mean by that, and I don't need to be very generic, but the fact is, like, now more than ever, the decisions people make are very visual, right? Back when I first started, logistics wasn't very visual, right? It was almost a necessary evil because companies needed to get their freight to market, right? And what I mean by wasn't very visual is a lot of companies never monitored on-time performance. A lot of companies, there was no real data structure, reporting structure, anything like there is today. Today, if a traffic manager, if a logistics manager, if a VP of logistics, if they bring in a supplier that gives them a bad rep, that hurts their business, their image, their credibility, and their brand are tarnished. It really is. If you as a sales rep are not focused on your client's goals, meaning, like, what are you looking to achieve? What are you looking to do? How are you looking at doing? What makes you think that's going to work? And these are all very valid questions. Some people might be like, wow, are you crazy? You can't ask that. But I think you need to, because as a consultant, and I look at it like this, guys, if you were to go into consult with a company, you wouldn't have a 2-minute conversation and start throwing numbers out there. You do an in-depth analysis. And that in-depth analysis in consulting can sometimes take 2-3 weeks, a month. Sometimes it can take 2 days. So depending on the prospect, there's got to be this in-depth analysis. And some people say, yeah, but Dan, that's easier said than done because they shippers won't give it to you right up front. Absolutely. I agree with that, because if they did that, they'd spend 90% of their time telling people about what the in-depth, about what it is. And 90% of the people won't call them back. 90% of the people won't follow up. Like, it's a horrible process. So what I suggest is, as you go in, you start, and I call it 8 miling it. If you've seen the movie Eminem, 8 Mile, at the end, when he's doing his battle rap, he trashes all his buddies. He trashes everybody. He says, yes, I am from a trailer park. I am white trash. And he hands the mic back and he says, now tell them something they don't know about me. And to me, that was like, after everything in that movie, that piece of the puzzle was the biggest piece. And that's when I went, ooh, if I say that to my prospects and I show them that I understand what they're going through. So that's starters, is really understand that. Also understand, whether you're talking about, for you guys, you're talking about a carrier, you're talking about a shipper, you're talking about a broker, there's a cost to onboarding. Meaning, if somebody's going to bring you into their mix, there's a cost for them to do that. And it might not be an upfront financial cost, but it will be a time cost. So how do you allocate something back to a prospect, something back to a team member, something back to a partner in business that helps them mitigate that cost? Those are the two things. And even onboarding, like, trust me, I onboard people for our software all the time. And one of the biggest questions is, how long is this turnover going to take? Because it costs money. And so what we did is we brought, and Jeff, this is more for you, we brought our onboarding to 45 minutes. In 45 minutes, your team will know the system in and out and be able to work it. Whereas you look at a lot of systems, it's like 4 or 5 hours of training and go through these 10 videos at 20 minutes a piece, and you fall asleep halfway through, and then you got to wake up and have 4 more coffees just to finish the second half of the videos, and like all this other garbage that happens. And so it's, how can a company, for you guys specifically, because you have so many variations of business, right? You can help in multiple areas. But if you go in for all the areas, you're never going to get it, because you're going to overwhelm people. There's also a fourth piece of this puzzle, that is, always focus on one thing. It's like, if you go to any website, if you go to any sales funnel, if you go to prospect a customer and you try and sell them 3 things, they're buying none. You focus on the one thing that's going to help them. And how can you guys do that? You need to understand where their head's at. So things like going to your present customers and saying, hey, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? You guys are awesome. You're doing everything right. No, man, you can't improve. Okay, perfect. Is there anyone else that you can connect us to? Can you give us a reference letter? And then you start getting reference letters from prospects or from customers on the specific solutions you've solved. Now, when you go to the next prospect that says, hey, I have this solution, you're like, oh my God, so did this person. So did this person. So did this person. And you let your customers sell for you.
Yeah.
Did that help?
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's pretty much helpful. Dan, I do have a question. What do you think are the best platforms that we should use in order to reach out the carriers? Because we have been using FMCSA, we use the DAT directory, we use carrier source, Reddit, Facebook, LinkedIn. We've gone through a lot of platforms, but for the past 3 to 4 months, the carrier response that has been way too low. It's really hard to convince them, especially when it comes for them to pay us. When we let them know about our services, that's the point where they're we got to reduce our costs. The market is not paying well. The freight is not so good. Why should we guys pay you? So that's the challenging part in sales.
So here, I'll ask you a couple of things, right? And we'll play in this sandbox for a couple minutes, because I think it's very important. You're not alone with that. Everybody's asking themselves the same questions, right? Customers are reducing rates. Carriers are getting lower rates. I've started doing things right now where I'm what I call future casting. So it's things like, yes, no, I understand that. Right now, it's horrible. But what happens when the market turns?
Yes.
Where are you going to be? Where do you think the same process that you've been using that hasn't got you to your goals is going to get you to your goals? And
Interesting.
It might be a little, some people might consider it a little straightforward, but if we understand how we as humans process information, right? During the pandemic, customers, carriers were raking it in, right? Customers felt like they were being robbed left, right, and center. I understand costs have gone up. I understand this has gone up, but why has my cost gone up 600%? Right? Carriers are raking it. Do I believe wholeheartedly that carriers took advantage of it, that brokers took advantage of it? 1000%. Nobody on this planet will ever convince me otherwise. But do I believe right now customers are shippers, manufacturers are taking advantage of it? 100%.
Yes.
But what I found happens is we're like butterflies or we're like goldfish. Sorry. We forget so quickly, right? So a lot of people right now forget what it was like during COVID from an organizational perspective, from a dispatch perspective, from a being on the road perspective, because we've now been a year and a half in this freight recession. So that's where our mindset is. So
Yes.
I would remind them. I mean, listen, I'll tell you guys, the whole dispatch thing at this point in time with the amount of double brokering and everything, it's a tough gig. Anyone that says it's not is lying to you. It's a tough gig. You guys know it, you're in it. So
Absolutely.
to listen to you, I would go back to every single customer that you're creating solutions for. And if I were you, I would take the next, like if you have 100 customers, whatever it is, I would ask them the 3 questions. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? If you get a positive answer on all 3 of those, you ask for a reference letter, you write the reference letter specifically pertaining to the solution you provided. Even say in the reference letter, at first I was skeptical, but I realized after working with them this, and you allow your customers to knock the walls down of your prospects. Because here's the thing, as a salesperson, I'm sorry, you have less credibility. You have the least credibility in the market as a salesperson until you get to know the prospect. But what's the best way to get to know the prospect? Give them information on the exact customer of yours that's having the exact same problem and say, here's what we saw, but let the customer say it. So Jeff, I think the processes in which you guys are going about it, you know, on the Reddits, because people are real on Reddit, like they're real, it's raw. They tell you exactly what they think without all the right? Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn now, it's kind of hokey. And when I say that, I mean it with all due respect, but it's always, oh, you know, my business is thriving. It's like, come on, man. Like, we know what the industry is. But I believe also the more presence you have there. So in excerpts of customer testimonials, get on more podcasts like this where people see who you are as a human, right? That like, listen, guys, we care about our customers. We're here on a mission to help them achieve a goal. Like one of our goals is to help 10,000 sales reps generate $1 million GP. A lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, come on, it's such BS. Like really, come on. But it's like, we're implementing, running things, doing things, creating processes, workflows to help that become a reality. So those kind of things is what I would focus on. I wouldn't change your strategy because it worked. What I think one thing that you guys gotta keep in mind, which is very tough because things were going, you were escalating, you were growing, and all of a sudden you feel like you've plateaued. It's not what you're doing, it's the market, it's the worry in the market that if I go to a company that's probably, call a spade, not in the US, so it's not home based, what's going to happen? Is this like what are the fallouts? What are the implications? Like, how will all of this negatively impact me? And the only I believe anyways, again, I'll say it, the only real way around that, I really think, is have your customers communicate with your prospects. And you do that best through reference letters. And like your customers will sell 1,000,000 times better than anyone in your company. I don't care how good they are, because your customer sits parallel with your prospects.
Yeah.
Right. Does that make sense, Jeff?
Yep, absolutely. You know, Dan, previously we were like mentally prepared about the coal market. We knew like from October, November till like February, we knew it's going to be a coal market. It's going to be like just a surviving period for the carriers and for us as well. But this time, you know, it's been all of a sudden, and we were out of clues that we had a sudden decline of like a 50% in sales.
Mhm.
50% going down all of a sudden, that's a big hit for us and for the company
Yeah,
as well.
it's a big
So
hit
we
for
had to
anyone.
like, yep, yep. So we had to like come up with some other ideas, like apart from dispatch, what could we offer them? Then we came up with the idea of like leasing owner operators, getting into the ELDs, fuel cards, renting trucks, trailers for the carriers, trying to help them out, recruiting drivers as well. I've done like a couple of like 8, 9 things in a row just to like get back in the game.
Yeah,
So just like Zen said in the beginning, it's about like exploring as much as possible. You got to
yeah.
keep on seeing what new things and new stuff you can like get into this, because trucking industry, it's all about referrals. That's what I've seen so far.
Hmm.
And it's not just like that we are just saying these things to clients to get them on board. It's not like that. We are actually providing everything like driver recruitment and then dispatch 24/7 support and then HOS training and certificate inspections and XYZ IFTA reporting. Like we are doing everything under one roof right now.
Hmm. Hmm. And the trick, I think for you guys, one of the challenges is going to be is as quick as possible for every prospect, identify which piece of the company is going to be a direct fit for them now. Right. I look at this like I look at brokering, right? So I mean, Zane, I know you said you're more on the brokering side now. So in brokerage, what we're finding works best is if you go in and you say, this is like my superpower. This is what I solve. Are you experiencing this or anything remotely close? And if the answer is no, it's not oh, well, I also do this really well. The answer is like, okay, do you mind if I just send you some information? I've got some sub things that I solve for people that can possibly help you. And I see the market accepting that more because you're coming in for something very specific. And not only that, like you think about it like this, right? If you're scrolling through social media and you have all these ads, a certain ad is going to catch your attention because that title or that image reflects something where your head's at. Okay. So other ads won't. This is exactly like cold calling, exactly like cold emailing. What is it you're looking for? What is it you do best? And if you speak to shippers out there, if you speak to carriers out there, they're probably all going to tell you the same thing. Tell me what you do best. If it fits, let's have a conversation. Because I don't believe at this point in time, so Jeff, to go back to what you were saying, carriers say, well, why would I pay you? And it's a very, very good question. However, maybe something instead of that would be, okay, well, let's say, for example, you're getting $1.65 a mile right now, or you're getting $2 a mile right now. We have shippers on board and we have carriers on board where we can get $2.50 a mile and we're taking 25 or 30 cents a mile. So in essence, yes, you're paying me, but I'm giving you an extra 20 cents a mile just by working with me. Now,
Yep.
I don't know if that fits in your process in your sales pitch if you've done that, but that would be one thing where you can go and counteract what a prospect is saying by doing something like that because you have the data to back it up. And then you say, you know what, what's your email? While you're still on the phone, what's your email? And you send them that reference letter. Here's a reference letter from ABC company. Not sure if you know them or not, but I've sent you to ABC, XYZ, and MLP companies. You might recognize one of them. Feel free to research them. All three of them actually had the same concern you had. And this is what we did for them. Because it's not just about per mile. It's about employee cost. It's about driver retention. It's about getting better shippers. It's about, so like, for example, a lot of companies, I believe anyways, and for any trucking companies and asset folk out there that is listening to this, please, if I'm wrong, I'd love to know. But I believe if you found shippers that treated their drivers like gold, they'd take a couple of cents less per mile to have happier drivers.
Yeah.
Because in the end, they don't have to retrain drivers, don't have to rehire drivers, don't have to, like, retention is key, right? And I don't know that, I mean, I'd love your guys' opinion on it before we head off the call here, but that would be my suggestion right away. What's your guys' thoughts on all of that?
We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan. Obviously, it's very helpful for us and especially for Jeff because we were like still we are struggling in sales. like very much right now.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think so it will be very helpful for us.
Yeah. And just so you know, Danny, a lot of people they're just not saying it, right? They're just not saying it loud. Like when I
Yeah.
started selling again in January, there was a period of time where I wasn't selling, focusing on building and so on and so forth. But when I started selling in January, I've been in the game 30 years in logistics sales.
Oh.
And in January, I was like, oh, holy shit, has the market changed? And it felt like it just went like this. So I had to
Mhm.
pivot. I had to change my whole process. So Jeff, all this pivoting you're doing from this one to that one to this, keep doing it, because
Yeah.
I know for a fact in everything we do, that break, that levee that you jump over, that maverick wave that you hit, it is so subtle from what
Mhm.
you're doing right now to get a wave of customers through your door. I know it is. And trust me, we're
Mhm.
all going through it. We're going through it in our business as well. I go through it in sales, where every week, almost sometimes every day, I'm like, oh, I got to
Mhm.
pivot that conversation. Okay, how do I do? And you just test things out. Like if I were you, Jeff, I would take the core strategy that worked, right? It just might be a segment of the market, a time in space that we are in right now, where there seems to be hesitation, but it worked because you've built your company on that process. 80%, 70%, 60% of your time on that process. The other 20, 30, 40%, you pivot and you test and you test and you test and you create metrics to understand the data, right? So if you're going to do a social
Absolutely.
post, or you're going to do you put a snippet of code on your website to an email campaign when somebody visits your website, which page did they visit? If they visit this page, they go in this campaign. If they stayed on this page longer, they go in, and you just test. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you're going to pull a piece from here, a piece from here, a piece from here, a piece from here. And you've got like the perfect sales process. Now, in 90 or 120 days, you're gonna have to redo that bad boy all over again. So you gotta understand that piece of it, right?
Yeah,
You might
yeah.
need to pull 3 or 4 more pieces from somewhere else or from another pivot to keep going. And that's the evolution. The fact that you guys started this entire podcast with, we love to learn. And part of this is like learning
Yeah.
and learning. That I think
We
is
all.
the biggest piece, because when you stop learning, that's when you become, that nope, this is the way it is. And there's no way it could be any other way besides the way I see it, which is so
100%.
wrong in everything we do.
Mhm.
We learn into the people we want to become. We learn into the company we want to become.
Yep.